hello everyone and welcome. This is Filecoin Core Devs number 58. Today is Thursday, June 1st, 2023. Lucky is out of office today, so I am going to help facilitate this meeting for all of us. On the agenda, we have two fifth proposal discussions, one on pledge shortfalls led by Tom Mellon, and the other one on a direct Filecoin Plus proposal by Alex North. And it sounds like we will finish this meeting today by having a discussion brought up by Stephen Lee about set milestones for protocol change and growth. All right. So with that, we'll jump right in. I saw Tom was on the line. Tom, you want to jump in?
Hey, Caitlin. Thanks very much. Yeah, so I will give a quick introduction to the pledge shortfall idea. So this is something that is something we've been working on together with CryptoNet and Alex North for the past month or two, modeling out the different scenarios and trying to design this. And really, this is something that came up about a year ago initially. And then it initially surfaced in some work from Alex, and then it came up recently about 3 or 4 months ago from some storage providers. I think it was DLTX and some other groups were saying, hey, a really big problem is we've got this pipeline, we've got the equipment, we've got everything in place, but the thing that we don't have is the tokens. So there's really a shortage of tokens that's constraining our ability to grow and onboard more storage. No, we know there's not a shortage of tokens in general, but there can be a shortage of tokens until the lending markets are more mature. So this is a problem we wanted to look at. So the way that we've taken to considering this problem is by enabling a shortfall in the initial pledge amount to be taken at the protocol level. So that's the general nature of the problem. We want to alleviate this constraint token shortage that's holding back network growth. And there's also a supply inflation element as well. So supply inflation can damage storage provider returns and also network growth. Potentially, depending on the specific parameterization, the shortfall proposals can help with this also. So that's the nature of the problem. In terms of the principles that we're trying to adhere to by proposing these potential solutions are that whenever an SP takes a shortfall, that should not be preferred over externally leased tokens. So you should not outcompete or damage external markets, and we want the ecosystem to thrive in that way. Another principle that we're trying to think about whenever we're coming up with these proposals are that we want to minimize risk to the network. So that could be in terms of supply shocks through any crypto economic changes, could also be in terms of what it applies for terminations if you're changing the initial pledge, and it also applies to consensus, which initial pledge is a big part of. So these are the principles that we're trying to adhere to, protecting these. So in terms of the different proposals, named Thing 1 and Thing 2, in common, they have a few features. So the shortfall should be available whenever increasing capacity. Some more features are that an SP will need to put up most of the pledge. So you have to put up at least 2/3 of the pledge. So it's not like you can take a shortfall of 90%. Around 2/3 is the number we seem to have settled on as reasonable. But this is ongoing and subject to parameterization as well. Another point to make is that the sector with a shortfall effectively gets the full QAP. It gets the full QAP because the shortfall should be repaid. So it's either repaid to the miner's balance to make up the shortfall, or it's burnt. So these are the two different variants. But what they have in common is that the sector still gets the full QAP. So you take a shortfall on the initial upfront amount, but you get the full QAP, so you get the full rewards. but you should end up eventually paying the full pledge. So it's really changing the dynamics rather than changing the headline figures, if you like. And so, as I touched on before, in exchange for being able to take a shortfall, to be able to onboard more, the storage provider should pay some fee or burn some amount of their tokens. And again, the precise numbers here are subject to parameterization, but we want to respect these principles that you should not outcompete or damage external lending markets. Okay, I think we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so a few more points, quite high level stuff. What does success look like? Success looks like greater than otherwise expected onboarding. If onboarding stays the same, that would be a signal that the proposal hasn't worked. What we also expect is to see similar or greater amounts of locking, and what we also expect to see is an increased amount of burning. If people are making use of the shortfall proposal, there will be a fee to do so, which is burnt. So that is one outcome, which from a protocol perspective level is a good thing. What does failure look like? Failure looks like no uptake. Is this bad? Is it relatively bad in the sense that we've spent time and effort thinking about it, but it's not the worst thing. What would be worse would be if there was extensive uptake of the proposal. So many storage providers are taking a shortfall, but there is no growth in onboarding. So instead, there's less token demand, but not necessarily so the shortfall is expressed through less token demand rather than in terms of increased growth through lifting that constraint. That would be a poor outcome, but that's something specifically that we're designing, trying to design for. Okay, so in terms of some basic FAQs, will miners be able to earn the same or more pledge for less reward? No, they shouldn't be able to earn more. The fee is less, the initial pledge is less upfront, but eventually that should be made up, and there should be some fees. So you should not be able to earn more. But there's some subtlety here, and it depends on how you think about it, whether you think about earning more in aggregate terms or per unit of pledge. So per unit of pledge, you shouldn't be able to earn more. But if you're a storage provider who is constrained by expanding their operations because they're limited in tokens, but otherwise not constrained, then you should be able to benefit from this and increase your aggregate returns. So there's a little bit of subtlety to that, but that's the answer. So will the shortfall be able to outcompete external lending markets? Again, this depends on the parameterization, but this is something that we are specifically trying to design for and have at the front of our minds, and would not want to suggest a parameterization where this can happen. Okay, so in terms of next steps, the next steps are really to understand, is there an appetite for this? What do you guys think? Is this something that's worth doing? So we've been working on it for some time, and there is a few more steps to do to analyze the precise effect on terminations and on consensus, and to potentially implement it. So it's like a non-trivial amount of researchers and developers' time to do this, but not very substantial. But it does take time. So that's something to consider. Whether or not this the potential benefit from the proposal outweighs this. So we think it can be good if people still believe there is a problem, a token shortage that is constraining network growth, which a lot of people were talking about some months ago. If people still believe this exists, then this can be a good solution. But really what we do in terms of next steps depends on what people think. Yeah, let me see. I'm just reading Jennifer's comment. So on outcompete, other than the parameters, user exchange might be another thing that have something built in that could easily outcompete the external market.
For example, what I'm trying to say, for example, if this is a built-in functionality, it's directly tied to the money actor and the power actor. That means to storage provider using any external lending market today, that means they have to give up their owner keys or beneficiary keys and such things, which adding the complexity to the UX. So that will be, from a UX perspective, it's also going to be a competition with regard to the external lending markets.
Yeah. I totally get what you're saying on that, and that's true. So the shortfall does have different features to external lending, and one of them is, and some of them are, that it would be much easier to use and potentially much safer. So these things make it more preferred. So you have to carefully balance other factors against that to make sure that the fees are sufficient and that they grow sufficiently with onboarding, so that this scenario doesn't occur where these things are directly competing with each other. I mean, we thought about this a lot, and we think it should be possible to create a proposal with the correct parameterization where external lending markets are preferred. Then the next thing is buying, and then the next thing is buying partly and taking apart shortfall. So despite yes, the user exchange might be different, and you might have these preferred features, preferable features such as increased safety or ease of use. It should be still possible not to compete directly with external lending markets.
Stephen, I think you have your hand up.
Yeah. Okay. I have some comments actually on this. Yeah, in the particular discuss thread, and I want to repeat something here. One is that I think we need to be really careful about this feature implementation, is because that I think this is actually have the network as a lender to the storage providers. So it will be the competitor for the DeFi project or any other lending market actually. This is one thing. And the second thing is that I didn't see many supports from the storage providers of this in the discussing thread. But I say there are some comments there. So I will suggest that we have more investigation, and as her mentioned, that to understand the community demands to perhaps you can get a vote from storage providers, because this is really for the storage providers, right? So that's my suggestion here. And also I think because this is trying to solve the problem of the shortage of the of token, but really I didn't say that. So we have actually more than 450 million circulating token and available there, but we don't have why the lending market is not so smooth here to support this, to support power growth. I think there are some other things behind. So for example, it's not so easy to for the lender and browser to get to have a really real good contract to satisfying both sides, and also because the protocol is complicated, and also the risk is unpredictable to handle many things, many complicated things. So I would think that perhaps we need to directly to solve a real problem over there. Yeah, that's my opinion here. So overall, I think yes, this perhaps could help on this, but I don't. I'm not so sure about this. So I really suggest that we have more investigation and more discussing, or to get the feedback from the community.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. So we want to see, I mean, it's really useful to hear the feedback here, but also to get more engagement on the GitHub thread, whether people think this is worth something worth pursuing. In terms, just like repeating, in terms of outcompeting external lending markets, the shortfall proposals should be structured specifically such that they become more punitive as shortfall increases, and the fee should be set in such a way that it should not outcompete or directly compete with lending markets in general, and that's like a precondition. And if it turns out for some reason that we're wrong in our analysis and that we can't achieve that, then I don't think we would want to pursue it. And I totally appreciate what you're saying also, that it does bring complexity, and this is something that we have to consider together. I noticed Jennifer's point that it may prevent liquid fill contributing back into the network. It's difficult to say. I mean, one thing is that one of the proposals are partially designed to improve supply and increase burning long term, which can have an effect of actually helping external lenders. There's kind of mutualistic effect there, which may actually help improve liquid fill from lenders. Molly, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I'm sensitive to time, I'm sure. We want to be moving on to other things, but very much agree that, like, you know, realistically, if there's not positive sentiment and adoption or like desire from the SP community in terms of like, yes, this would very much help us grow faster, especially because DeFi solutions are still getting off the ground. At least, you know, my understanding is that a number of like a lot of the liquid fill that is available for potential, you know, usage as collateral is mostly held on exchanges and other, like, you know, OTC desks. And so it's not available for easy access to storage providers without access to those DeFi solutions. Those DeFi solutions are scaling and scaling quickly. However, it's very TBD whether they can achieve, you know, I think we're about to cross an exabyte of total data stored on Filecoin, which is a huge, amazing achievement for this entire community. But if, say, that we're on track to store another exabyte of data in the next year, like that would point to a significant demand on collateral that those DeFi solutions might not be able to meet by themselves. And so it's like, you know, these two things together might help increase adoption. But I very much agree, like, look, if we don't see strong signal that this is going to be adopted and utilized by the community, we shouldn't put the time and effort into it. We have many other important things that we need to go work on that are core to improving the network. And to Stephen's point, like, if these proposals don't get positive, like, traction of storage providers being like, yes, this would really help me grow, this would help me meet my clients' demands in terms of onboarding their data smoothly, then I think we'll move on to other solutions and keep this in the back burner. I think the other flag, obviously, is that, like, from an implementation timeline, we're a little bit, you know, DeFi is scaling right now, and I don't know if people can predict super well. I think a lot of people are like, well, hopefully that just solves all the demand there, and we can't really tell whether it will in 1 to 2 to 3 months from now, but we might find this being a little bit more of a burning issue down the line if DeFi doesn't scale as fast as we hope it does. That's just my assessment of things. And I think that the actionable TLDR is, if you care a lot about this proposal, please comment on the GitHub issue so that we know whether or not to prioritize it.
Thanks, Molly. And I think with that, that'll be our final comment on this proposal. Again, there's 2 links here, and we'll also include them in all of the meeting notes afterwards. Let's jump over into the next conversation topic, which is the direct Filecoin Plus proposal from Alex North.
Thank you. Great. So this is so I'm going to sort of work backwards from a slightly larger thing to a smaller, more immediate thing. These are all slightly too raw to have been FIP discussions yet, but I expect them to be up there soon. So a background and motivation. Currently, we can observe from chain stats, and many people are repeatedly telling us that making deals is expensive in terms of gas costs. That's a significant part of the cost of doing stuff on Filecoin, of onboarding data. And we have a situation here that there's a good opportunity for us to reduce these gas costs quite significantly. For the dominant use case, or for a very large use case of a deal that is Fill Plus and does not involve an additional payment from the client to the SP, we end up doing some duplicate accounting. The verified registry actor on-chain records all of the important things about a Fill Plus allocation and claim. It does this to have on-chain records that justify the 10x QAP associated with it. But if there's no client payment, then the deal in the market actor is really adding a heading to the situation. It's ending up recording similar information about the terms that are already applied to the Fill Plus on its own, without client payment isn't adding anything, but it is adding a bunch of costs, and so very rough guesstimates. Half the cost of deal publishing is associated with the market actor record in the Fill Plus case, and the other half is your essential things related to the Fill Plus allocation itself and other deal activation. So you can see on the right here, the verified registry already has on-chain all of the essential information about Fill Plus deals. So this information, we want this information to be on-chain. It's on-chain in the verified registry for many reasons, but this is all directly observable. So if direct Fill Plus is going to propose that we skip making the deal in the market actor, and the information we want is still going to be observable. Next slide, please. All right, so this is a proposal for what we're calling direct Fill Plus, which is a process, a simplification of the process by which a Fill Plus, simple Fill Plus deal with no client payments can be made, which ends up being cheaper and simpler in its own sense, although of course it's a change from what currently happens, and so it does involve work to get there. And so here, a client, as a verified client that has data cap, can make a Fill Plus allocation directly with the verified registry. Currently, today, the built-in market actor acts as an intermediary for them and allocates data on their data cap on their behalf. But that's extra work that's doing that's sort of not necessary. And then we can also have the minor actor. The minor actor already directly claims Fill Plus, QAP when onboarding a sector, and it currently checks the data flow issue where it has to look up the verified allocation ID from the market actor. But the SP knows this ID. They could provide it directly when they're onboarding a sector. And so in this flow, so you can see the two flow diagrams here. There is no market actor in the right-hand flow diagram. A data cap gets allocated directly by the client, and the SP claims it directly when onboarding a sector. And so there is about half the sort of account keeping work that needs to be done in this second case. It has a limitation that it has no ability to process a payment. So there's no ability. The verified registry doesn't do sort of client payments. But when that payment was going to be zero anyway, this is a much more direct way of getting what we want. Next slide, please. Okay, so there's one thing we have to do first. This diagram on the right here, this has changed slightly from how I presented it last week. I broke a dependency, added a bit more detail in, but I presented this sort of dependency chart last week, and I've highlighted the areas that I'm talking about right now. So there's a prerequisite to doing this direct fill plus thing, and that is the one other thing the built-in market actor does is enforces. It's called deal collateral. I think the best way to think about this deal collateral is as a deal termination penalty. It functions very similar to the sector termination penalty, but is attached to the fact that there's non-zero data in the sector instead. And so if we want to maintain this behavior of having a sort of mandatory data assurance penalty that the network is enforcing, then we need to move that so that it's still going to happen for these direct fill plus deals, even if they don't touch the market actor. And so I have a proposal that's sketched out. There's a link on the slide here, and once I figure out some details about, once I figure out a couple of details, I have to publish this as a FIP discussion. But in brief, we can move this penalty from the market actor where it is now into the minor actor, so the minor actor can enforce it for all data that goes into sectors, whether or not it uses the built-in storage market. And then I'm advocating for that we change this also to parameterize it by QAP instead of raw byte power, which will equalize the penalty in terms of block reward between fill plus and non-fill plus deals. But that's optional. We can discuss that. And then so after this data termination penalty, which is a very simple change in generally, we're then free to do the, there is more work required to make this direct fill plus path possible. It involves changes to the API that miners use when they onboard sectors, because they now need to provide their fill plus allocation IDs when onboarding. The fill plus allocation ID takes the place of the deal ID. But we could also, anyway, so this is a prerequisite. It's a fairly small prerequisite, but I want to put it up first for discussion on its own merits. But then we're on a path to this direct fill plus thing, which will be much cheaper onboarding of fill plus, and is also a nice step to do a much more scalable version of this as well, where we can get the costs to go sublinear in the data size. Okay, I'll stop chatting. Question from Molly. I'll read it out if it's okay. Relying on the fill plus registry, would this require new APIs or tooling to make sure we'd retain visibility on how much verified data XSP stored or which data XSP stored? Yes, to the extent that tooling right now looks at the built-in market actor state for that information, it would need to change to the verified registry. That change can happen today. If I was writing that tooling today, I think the verified registry is the right place to look at for that data. But I understand that things that were tooling that's more than a year old is probably looking at the market actor. The verified registry has an API that smart contracts can call. I think all the relevant methods are exported, but if they're not, wouldn't see any barrier to exporting the relevant methods so that smart contracts can access this as well. So yes, I think there is some change for some tooling, but yes, there is some change to tooling. All right, let me open for more questions. Lauren, go for it.
Can you flesh out a little bit why tearing down the market actor is just not a path we want to go down?
No, I don't think I can, because I would also be quite happy with that path. To an extent, so these proposals are based on making less change than that to achieve these outcomes. Removing the built-in market actor has to stay there as a market, lots of being relied on for deals that are not just fill plus and so on. I think maybe what you're suggesting is just cutting the built-in market actor out straight away and making it non-mandatory. I would be quite happy with that generally. If we want to have this mandatory deal assurance enforced by the network, then we've got to put it somewhere, and that's what this data termination penalty is doing. But I think it's a good question whether the network should really enforce that across all data everywhere, or whether we should leave that up to smart contracts. So I welcome the discussion about whether we should just drop that, which is a simpler change.
I was just thinking this is going to create two very different worlds for verified deals and non-verified deals, and that adds another layer of complexity. So if there's like another path to get to the similar aims, should be considered.
Yeah, Molly, do you have a response or a question?
I think it's somewhat a response to that, but feel free to go first.
No, you go.
Yeah, just trying to think about it, like thinking about like the product experience of using Filecoin, and I think all clients of Filecoin will be concerned if they hear about other clients' data like falling off the network, and the network feeling unreliable for repairing and renewing that data. We're trying to think about, building a robust foundation for humanities information, like that, having a economic feedback loop within the protocol that tries to default for robust data storage, because like work is done to put the data on the network. And so it really sucks for, really everyone involved, but especially for the client, if they've like relied on this data storage mechanism to hold like the key copies of their data, and now they no longer have the ability to repair that data, like they're more harmed. And so it definitely a sector that has lots of deals or data in it, I think needs to have a higher termination fee or penalty than one that is just empty CC data waiting for client deals. Now, where that happens or how that happens, I think is a little bit more TBD. But that's like, I'm just trying to think about it from the product perspective. If we kind of put it more in user land and a chunk of people onboard unreliable data, like it's going to make for the feeling that the network is less reliable from many different clients, which could have a reputational harm to the network as a whole. So I think that's pushing for, hey, making sure that there's some sort of deal collateral associated with data storage seems like a good thing to increase overall, incentive to live out data storage commitments. Maybe just, like how much the network is willing to spend in terms of gas fees and complexity on that is probably the bigger crux. Like, I think we want that, but how much are we willing to spend? What is the cost of it? And is there a lower cost way of achieving that same goal? I think is how I frame it.
Yeah, we can make that goal achievable much cheaper by moving into the miner. It'll be essentially free, except when it happens. And so, but I think it's also helpful. It pulls this out as an explicit policy knob. That's sort of a bit more obvious that it's a thing that the network could choose to change in the future. It's like, terminating a sector, you pay this much for terminating the capacity and this much for terminating the data, and they're parameters that could change, presumably reducing, but it depends on what happens.
I think perhaps this is the last. Yep, go ahead.
Sorry, this comment, this fit will reduce gas usage by 40%. I don't want to oversell this here. The gas associated with activating a deal that is a Fill Plus deal that goes this direct route, yes, I think that can reduce by 40 to 50%. It's approximately double accounted for. There are still many other costs associated with onboarding a sector. Deals is a large part of it, but the whole thing is still going to cost. It's not going to reduce the whole cost by 40%. I don't think.
Right. It's not for the deal cost per se, but it's just on the network level. We're looking at 40% of the gas cost today.
I don't want to commit to that right now. There is still so today when you publish a deal that's Fill Plus, it's also doing the Fill Plus allocation work, and so that whole thing doesn't go away. We're still doing the Fill Plus bit, just the deal bit in the middle goes away. So depending what your base is, maybe it's 20% of the total gas cost we're cutting out. It might be the right answer.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, Alex. And of course, when you actually open up the flip draft, we will share it for everyone as we usually do across all of our normal channels. For the sake of time, I think we're going to move on to our last discussion topic for today. And that is sort of an open discussion that Stephen wanted to lead about setting milestones for protocol changes and perhaps other matters. Stephen, you want to give a little bit of an intro?
Sure. So, as we all know, Juan had presented the Filecoin versions many times in different conference. There are three steps. But I think that is on a very high level, right? It's about the vision level. It's not about the protocol. It's too high level. I would think that as a chain, as a public chain, and also for Filecoin, currently we need to do lots of the protocol change to enable a thriving application ecosystem, right? Which is very important. So I want to here to initiate a discussion about the community need to have some guidance or direction defined for a little bit long term of the protocol change. So to actually overcome the challenges we are facing right now. To have the Filecoin, to have a real thriving application ecosystem, which we really want to have. And actually we have many things under discussion, but we don't have a clear milestone. For example, in next half year, what we want to do, and also next 1 year or 2 years, what we want to do, right? Basically, I really think that for Filecoin, if we want to have a thriving application ecosystem, we need to simplify the layer 1 protocol, because you have we need to have as few as possible the rules on the very basic layer. The fundamental layer is because that you want to enable different kinds of innovation and which could be adopted very soon, not like right now any change we need to get discussed for a very long time. So there are many things to do, and as we discussed, for example, to remove the market actor from the privileged position, or to have perhaps how the data handling, the deal handling, or something move up to the user space. Even we could move Filecoin Plus to user space. Many things like this. And also another very important thing is that currently we know that the network bandwidth is limited. We are already facing the high base fee of the system, even we don't have a very large application base, right? So we need to solve this problem too. This is a very big thing we need to solve. So when and how? So we need to have a plan here. For example, how we could. And I really don't think the gas line will solve this problem. It's because you will make sure that the basic ruling message will be protected by protocol. But how about the application layer? So we don't have much enough bandwidth for the application message running, right? So we need to have some consensus layer innovation to really create better architecture, right? To also protect the control messages, control messages, and also we have enough bandwidth. Perhaps IPC is a solution, or perhaps we need to have something like sharding or something like that. But anyway, I say that that is one thing we have to do perhaps in the next 2 years or sometime, right? So many of this we need to. And I would suggest we list them out and we have a plan, so that the core dev meeting and also the core dev team engineering could have some focus. So we have something to do in this 3 months, and also in the half year and the next time. That's my opinion here. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. If I could just summarize for a second. So it sounds like you're saying that it would be helpful to have these high-level milestones plotted out in this kind of cross-functional or cross-ecosystem roadmap, but that we need better technical infrastructure and architecture as well, right? To gate check technical progress so that we can inform that roadmap. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, so I'm here, focusing on the protocol level, okay, on the actually is on layer 1. So because I know that protocol labs have a big plan for example, some other parts, the retrieval market, data onboarding, many other things. So here we want to focus on the core dev meeting for the protocol change. We have roadmap here.
Sure. Molly, do you want to jump in?
Alex was ahead of me in the hand stack, so I'm happy to let him go, but I'm giving snaps because I'm like, totally agree. I think us having a core devs roadmap would be really beneficial. I have some ideas on how we might get there, but I'll let Alex go first.
Thanks. I like a lot of what you're saying, Stephen. I'm very sympathetic to. I like to focus on like the protocol as a important subset of the larger vision that Protocol Labs often communicates. Talking about the Filecoin L1 protocol itself, and having that more clarity there would be really valuable. But it's hard. I've had a similar thought a couple of times. I have sort of some private notes where I've sort of sketched out some things and have held back from communicating them. Every time I've done that, it's been wrong in fairly significant ways because things have changed, or maybe it's been like not directionally wrong, but just the timeline or the sequencing is off. So in a sense, things that I'm working on, even presenting today, are still following from a direction that I set out and wrote down sort of 2 years ago. It's in FIP discussion somewhere, and I'm still sort of going down that path. But I couldn't see how the macro and economic changes would take up so much of our attention and time, and how they would change the landscape, and how the focus would shift between different things over time. And so I'm sort of I think it's very not dangerous, but I think it's potentially unhelpful to do something labeled a roadmap, particularly if you put dates on it, because it has this idea that we can predict the future. And I think for this kind of thing, that's more than we know. But it would be very helpful to have a strategy, like a set of directions and some understanding about how we'd reach some sort of goals. I think that could be really helpful. And I'd like to contribute to it. There are probably multiple pieces in it, and you mentioned some of them. And one final thought is another reason I'm a bit hesitant to sort of set out and do this is that whenever I write down something vaguely like that, everyone then assumes that I'm going to do it, and so everyone forgets about it. And so, in a sense, by leaving, there's a fairly conscious decision of mine to only write down things that I'm actually going to do in the near term, rather than write down things that are very long term, because I feel everyone else just backs off when they think someone else has a handle on it. And there's not like this one. Well, we have this core devs group, and we certainly could make it more of a force for progress. We are part of this ecosystem with many independent players, and there is not one plan that someone can make. and have everyone necessarily go along with that. And I'd rather there were more. In fact, I'd rather there were more plans, more people executing on some plans that were just not at odds with each other, would add up to more progress than as having one plan, but everyone just sort of sitting back because they think it's handled.
Yeah, I would just jump in to say that my experience has been very similar to Alex's. And we also have tried to do this several times, I think, by, setting this idea that, yeah, we should have milestones, we should have a roadmap. And that's actually a really, really large bar to clear. I think what we could do is sort of invert this problem and think about what we can do more technically, especially as we look to perhaps introduce new capacities or scaling for governance in the near future, to say, what can we do to streamline in certain ways upgrades perhaps, or standardize some of our testing. Again, it falls into this problem of things change, and sometimes we have to do things that we don't anticipate. It may just be that we're at a point of growth where it doesn't actually make sense to try and predict too far into the future, and we have to be comfortable with a little bit of chaos or a little bit of uncertainty. But Stephen, I think I have tried and failed to do something similar several times pretty publicly, and I'm more than happy to help you kind of think through this and sort of carry something forward. But I think perhaps the best place for this conversation right now, since it is such a large one, is perhaps opening up a discussion post in the Core Devs repo in GitHub, and just having sort of a longer term conversation about what this might look like. Because again, I think it changes a lot. And I think, as Alex sort of alluded to, this, or Molly did, maybe it gets harder and harder, especially as more teams come into the mix. And we decentralize even further and further away from it just being protocol labs or just being one stakeholder group at a time. That has a key slate of changes to make.
Yeah, maybe to that point, Caitlin, I think it is very useful when individual teams, like, our engineering research team, put their roadmaps or upcoming milestones, if you will, out publicly so that other teams are aware. As Alex points out, that does create the problem of like, great, you're solving those problems. Like, cool, I'm going to assume you're going to do all of those things that you've listed in your roadmap, and I'm going to focus my area somewhere else. And so, but on the flip side, you also get notification for, hey, groups that could potentially collaborate together. And so that's something that we do on the NRES side. But as you point out, Stephen, that is very broad, and it's covering a lot of different topics, data storage and retrieval, refactors to sealing as a service, changes around compute over data networks, and all of the IPC work that you are referencing, such that we can have layer 2 networks building on top of Filecoin. I think my suggestion or my thought on how we might come together because from a core protocol perspective across Venus, Lotus, Forest, we do need to have alignment around what changes are we making at a core protocol perspective. Obviously, there's lots of features that each of our implementation might take on that are not consensus critical, but when we are making consensus critical changes and upgrades, we need to be on the same page about what we're making and why and how that is improving. And so one thought is to actually get our groups together, have a thing like how the ipfs community has had the ipfs thing the past couple of years for core protocol developers to talk about those sorts of improvements. We've been batting around the idea of having a Filecoin thing or a Phil thing for core devs and researchers and folks who are analyzing and pushing forward the core of this ecosystem. And I think that could be a really useful place to talk and align roadmaps with each other across different implementations. And maybe what we could have coming out of that is a core dev, at least like a set of things. It might even just, maybe it's not even a roadmap, but like, here are the set of things that we think we're going to do right now. Here are the set of things that are kind of on our back burner that we're investigating. And this is kind of where we hope to be in like 6 or 12 months, and some alignment along those vantage points. And doing that together as a group during an event like that might help us do knowledge sharing, do collective alignment across a number of different groups who are able to communicate with each other very quickly by being in the same place. And so that's one idea for how we can get more alignment there. I do like your point. You were like, we need something that focuses on the core protocol, like IPC, where it's like IPC actually, at least right now, is being developed as a smart contract on top of FVM. And so it's actually less core Filecoin protocol than, or at least it wouldn't require network upgrades in its current form from folks in this room. But it is very core to, hey, how are we going to think about applications and builders and scaling of the Filecoin protocol? And I think those are the exact, we want to have clear alignment across this group on like, okay, how is Filecoin going to scale? What does that scalability look like? How are our nodes going to support and our tooling going to support a shardable chain state, region-based chain state, and how are we going to then make sure that the data in Filecoin is available to those sorts of networks and things along those lines? These are like, there's a lot of conversation topics in here, and my hunch would be the conference style venue is going to help us synchronize and make alignment and like working group decisions in a way that discussion posts might not serve us.
Yeah. I actually think it's a great thing, Stephen, that you brought this up, because again, this is something that we all think about and all want, and it's a big problem. But it sounds like also, I like Molly's idea as well, that we can kind of continue these conversations and in-person works especially effectively. I think for the sake of time, we will jump in, and just a quick reminder that next, yep.
Caitlin, can we just let Lee go? Because he has a hand up before we.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it. Yeah, go ahead, Lee.
Yeah, just gonna be quick. Yeah, so for regarding the protocol, roadmap that we're talking about, I think another quick thing that we all can do, at least for the node implementators, we maintain like an open roadmap anyway on our Forest repo. So if all the node implementators could do that, and we can just kind of go from there. So for one example would be like, for example, recently Forest has like a way to get the snapshots. So before it was previously mostly Lotus, but now you can get the snapshots from Forest as well. So we can be like, okay, now we have further decentralized the Filecoin network through these way of maintaining snapshots. That could, and then potentially we can probably have like a PL newsletter update or something and say, okay, this kind of adds up to the further the entire Filecoin ecosystem or vision of decentralizing the network or something. So that's something we can start small. That's kind of easier for every one of the projects to do it. Just open source your roadmap, open source your milestones, and together it can potentially come together for the bigger Filecoin roadmap. Just wanted to provide my thoughts on it.
Thanks, Lee. Any other comments or questions that I may have missed? All right. Lots of big conversation topics today, lots of links to sort of external write-ups and proposals. We will make sure that you have all of those. Again, Lucky is out for the rest of the week, so if you feel like you need something or have follow-up questions, please feel free to let me know. As a reminder, next Monday, we have our next community governance call, lots of interesting topics. If you have some curiosities about what we're doing in governance, especially over the next couple of months, definitely join, we can talk through it. And we also have the PhilGov Slack channel for coordinating things outside of FIPS specifically, so feel free to join as well. Otherwise, we will leave Q&A for now because we're at the top of the hour. Thank you all so much, and we will see you in July.